As many of you know, I was born in New York City in the borough of Manhattan. So I was raised being very patriotic, which means I was for the United States government in a big way. I was for the military, I was for the federal government, the FBI and the CIA, and for the city government and the state government, meaning the police, as well as legislators and legislature throughout the land. I was for politicians, statewide, citywide, and part of the United States government. I was a man who was determined to do the right thing. Even when I was young, I made a call into the Marines when I was younger and found out that when I was 18, I needed to see a recruiter to be recruited into the Marine Corps. And I joined the Marine Corps when I was a young person, when I was a young man. I joined the Marine Corps and was enlisted for 2 weeks or so and got out on disability. And I was determined to be someone to the United States so much that I wanted to fight a war for the United States eventually. And even though I was disabled, I was determined to fight a war eventually. I was disabled mentally. I wasn't disabled physically. So I knew I could work things out in my mind, that I could get better, and that I could eventually, take part in being in a war when I was a colonel, because I was determined that I was still making rank in the military. It turned out that I wasn't officially enlisted in the Marine Corps anymore. But when I was running for president of the United States in some other era, I made a law that allowed me to be in the United States military once again. And I was someone who joined the Army this time, became a colonel in the Army right away, and was sent to Vietnam to fight a war that started in 1955 and didn't actually end in 1975. That's when I was born, was in 1975. And the war didn't seem to end as long as we wanted to fight it. So there were missions, reconnaissance missions, and other missions that were taking place in Vietnam while I was there in 2017, actually. And I did my part to defend and to serve the United States government in a way that helped the country tremendously at that time, that someone who was running for president of the United States would go to war for his country and be all that he could be in the Army. And the Army was definitely my calling. I'm still in the Army now. I'm a general in the Army because I was made a general in Vietnam while I was in Vietnam. It was almost like an experience that you would see in the movies. It was like some kind of major event every moment of every step of the way. Every moment of being in war in Vietnam was like it should have been dictated and choreographed in the movies for people to display on their TV sets everything that I was going through in my life at that time. And I disclose no specific incidents at this time to the public because I want them to experience war for themselves if they're determined to protect the United States and serve the United States government the way I did in the Army, in the Navy. They could become a Navy SEAL. In the Army, you could become a Ranger, a Green Beret, work for the Special Forces in the Army. And we're looking for white Americans who are residents and citizens of the United States who want to defend the United States of America. This is your chance to become someone important to the country and take a stance against violence, terrorism, and all kinds of threats to the United States of America, espionage, you know, the types of crimes that occur are dedicated to treason, and treason is a crime that seems to be the worst crime against the country that has ever been committed in history. It's punished by death. It's punishable by death, by a capital offense. It is a capital offense. It is a capital crime to commit treason, and it's capital punishment for anyone who commits that act. So be aware that you must comply by the law and be a law-abiding citizen to join the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, or the Marines, or the Coast Guard, the honorable mentions of the United States Armed Forces.